talk to the Earth Care Eco Kids, and since he was coming, I wanted him to do some outreach.
Right.
And so he's been to the schools. Well, he's been to one school today, 2 more tomorrow, and then he flies out tomorrow night. But he's going to give us a presentation on mangroves, and this is good because Raquel and Nathaniel this Saturday, so they need this refresher.
Okay, so good evening. My wondrous audience here on this chilly night. Okay, so assuming that Tyree and I can figure this, well, he'll figure it out, that's what I wanted to drift a little bit away from mangroves initially, because most of you guys know lots about mangroves. So what you really don't need to know is what a lot of these slideshows are about, which is this is what a red mangrove is, and this is what a reservoir is, and this is how they're adapted to salt, right? You know all that. So I thought what I would do is focus on the educational side of things, because that's what I do, you know, that's what I'm doing now. And the whole process of how I do the education program, which is now in 12 countries, and we've got one we're working on, and another one hopefully, like Suriname now, and hopefully India towards the end of the year. So that'll take us up to 13 or 14. And then I have another little video about that which explains how that whole process takes place, because I don't think you guys know how that process takes place. So I thought it would be really more interesting for you, rather than, you know, this is a red mangrove, this is a black mangrove, and blah, 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 to show you the origins of the whole idea, the whole concept, which go back to the late 80s, early 90s in the Pacific Northwest and British Columbia of Canada. And there's another little, I'm going to show you a couple of little videos, not because I'm lazy, but because that basically says it the way it is. So this is a video that we made in, I think it was about 1992 or 93. We had what's called a traveling wetlands roadshow, which went around to different communities throughout British Columbia and Washington State. And this explains it, and what it misses out. That's me, much younger. And actually, I had a bit more hair then, but not much, but I had a bushy beard. Okay.
Hi, my name is Martin Keeley. I'm the Executive Director of the Friends of Boundary Bay. And for the past 5 years, we have been traveling across British Columbia with our Traveling Wetlands Roadshow, teaching students in schools and communities across the province all about wetlands in their own backyards. This past fall, we were fortunate enough to be able to visit the West Kootenays. Our trip there was sponsored by the Columbia Basin Fish and Wildlife Compensation Program. And we were able to teach schools in Revelstoke, Slocan, Crawford Bay, and Nelson. In fact, we spent 2 weeks in Nelson at Hume Elementary School and Central Elementary School. And what you're about to see are students from Central Elementary School enjoying the Traveling Wetlands Roadshow and, well, I think having a great time. This class of grade 4 students is arriving at Kokanee Creek Park at our Mobile Ecology Center. There, they're greeted by our education coordinator, Adele Stapleton, and naturalist Toby Rowe.
So, you're going to become scientists for today, and
the class is broken into 2 groups. The first group heads into the trailer with Adele, where they experience a series of wetland-related activities.
What do you think the roots are doing?
The second group goes into the wetland itself with naturalist Toby Rowe. Once there, they conduct a hands-on exploration.
Frogs? We did see some toads yesterday.
They also look for other signs of life, such as this very large beaver dam and these ducks swimming around on the lake. The next thing the students do is collect water samples.
So this net is good for getting plankton. It's called a plankton net. And the reason it's so good is because the holes in the net are really, really tiny, so they can't get out. And no matter how many times you scoop with this, you're going to get this much water and more plankton going in here, and the extra water comes out the edges.
Students work together with nets and containers to collect their own water samples. These are taken back to the classroom for microscopic examination later in the day. Meanwhile, in the trailer, Adele Stapleton reinforces wetlands concepts through a series of hands-on activities. Here, students learn what and how birds eat. This eagle is using its talons to catch a rat. Another activity is wetland metaphors, where students learn more about why wetlands are so important. Boats represent human uses such as fishing and recreation. Wetlands are a vital place for wildlife like this duck. Wetland plants clean up the water by filtering it, and wetlands soak up floods.
To soak up water. So if it's not clear, make sure you turn these to get it in focus.
In the afternoon, students return to their classroom to study their water samples. The Friends of Boundary Bay provide 15 light source microscopes, and these enable the students to examine invertebrates. They also have to identify and draw what they find. They can also take their findings and look at them in the Friends of Boundary Bay's video microscope. Always a big hit.
When I was at wetland, I found it in the water.
It's actually on top of
The microscopic investigation is followed by the groundwater demonstration model.
And the reason we have a model is because if you tried to see what was happening to water underground, you would have to dig a huge pit and it would probably fill in with water again. It'd be really hard
The
to
model
get-
demonstrates what happens to pollutants when they go underground, into our groundwater.
So where is it leaking? Into the water, into the stream. Ew.
And you guys are going to dress up and become a creature. Alright. Okay. While the intermediate grades are exploring the wetland at Kokanee Creek Park, the primary grades enjoy their own exploration in the school gym. Here they become wetland creatures, dressing in colourful costumes designed by festival artist Evelyn Roth. Once they become creatures, they take part in the food chain game, which speaks for itself. Alright, ever been swallowed by a fish before?
Yeah. No.
You do have imaginations, okay. The next exploration takes place inside the giant fish. And it is followed by a wetland story in the fish.
So it's a very short video that sums up a huge amount of work. And you can see how that is how we base the Mangrove program. Because the actual guide that the teachers use, the Boundary Bay Resource Guide, and there's another one about exploring estuaries, and a third high school one about ecoscope in the wetlands, which is mostly tidal wetlands. So we go through, that program went through about, well, it went through the whole school system, basically. So, and we've done, I don't know how many schools, thousands of schools before I left. And then it kept going for another couple of years and ran out of money. When I left it, there was money for it to function and operate. We worked in a kind of a communist system, whereby everyone was paid the same. So, up there. So that the two people you saw working there, and myself, and we had a couple of other people, we all got paid exactly the same amount of money. So nobody could bitch and moan about, hey, he's getting paid more than I am, and he's getting paid more than nothing. Everyone got paid the same. And it worked very, very well, except when the new executive director came in, and after the first year she decided to give herself a massive pay rise. Right? And there was no money budgeted for her massive pay rise, and so basically it fell apart. So that's what happens with small NGOs, Claire, right? They fall apart when one leader disappears and then somebody else comes along and does it wrong. So that happens all the time, unfortunately. So, okay, so we took that concept and moved to the Caribbean, and that's when we created the Mangrove program, all right? And I have a video program now which shows you how that functions. So Tyree, I need you back here to show me where that other program is, and then I'll show you which one it is. I hope you don't mind me showing you the video, because it gives you the basics, it gives you the theory behind it all. We know the true value of mangroves.
and so do these kids. We know that they live in salt water. So do these kids. We know that they are home to many species of birds. So do these kids. We know they protect us against storms. So do these kids. We know they filter pollutants. So do these kids. And we know that they are incredibly biodiverse. So do these kids. How do they know? Over 2,500 teachers and more than 250,000 students in 11 countries have found out so far. It's called the Marvellous Mangroves Curriculum, a great 300-page wetlands environmental resource guide for both children and adults living in the tropics and subtropics. But it doesn't just happen overnight. Every country, every location is different. And by initially finding a well-established local partner and setting up a working group of educators, scientists, teachers and specialists, we can ensure that the curriculum is translated into the local language, adapted and illustrated to consider the local sciences from biology to geology, and linked to the national science, social studies and arts curriculum. Once published, teachers are first taken through their paces in a series of intensive workshops. This starts with an overview of mangroves, detailing everything from their functions to the species that use them, as well as human impacts. Hands-on science activities are used to support learning through exploration and experiments as teachers gain knowledge about these incredible ecosystems. These activities are sequential and completely integrated with national curricula. They include properties of water and water quality, mangroves and species adaptations, related ecosystems, storm protection, human impacts on mangroves, bioaccumulation, ecotourism, restoration, research applications and data collection, and much, much more. Field trips then reinforce ideas and learning in the field, and the workshops conclude with vibrant presentations from the teachers in the form of posters, poems and plays, creating something tangible that they can take back with them to the classrooms. Now it's time to teach the students with even more fun and engaging hands-on activities, all about water, birds and feathers, examining mangroves from roots to leaves, pollution soup, oil spill cleanup, microscopes and microorganisms, mangrovia and costumes in Cayman Islands and Australia, and many field trips. So you wonder how schools in the tropics are preparing their kids for the future? By connecting young people to their environment? Preparing the next generation of decision makers? Well, now you do. Marvellous Mangroves, an award-winning curriculum from the Mangrove Action Project.
So that basically tells you what you've got now in terms of mangroves. The books that you see, we went through them, a group of us went through them in Cayman, spent a couple of years at it. At the same time, I ended up, well, at the same time I was working with the West Indian Museum Working Group. I actually came here in, it was 99 I think, and what happened was that we were asked by a person who shall remain nameless, who's on my list of people I never want to see again. But you know the way the aristocracy works. So basically she wanted to, they were stuck, they couldn't do it. So they paid me a pittance and paid Claudette, my wife, a minuscule amount of money. We rewrote it. We worked, because we were already halfway through ours, if not more, worked with some other writers and stuff, and produced the Wondrous West Indians Wetlands, which is being used all over throughout the Caribbean. I don't know if it still is, but it was for a while. And we got it, we did a teacher's workshop in Nassau, about 4 days. We went through the whole thing, because we did a huge draft. Will it work? Will it work? This will work, this will work. Anyway, and then we came up with a final product that we did about a year later, came up with a big workshop in Dominican Republic, and everybody was very happy, and then we didn't hear anything. And so, after we did, because it needed to be completed. So after we didn't hear anything for about 3 months, I phoned this woman and said, well, we're ready to go, we've been ready to go through. Oh, well, I've given it to the RSPB to finish off. I go, but you didn't tell us anything about it. No, we just decided they could do a really good job. And that was it. Yeah. So anyway, so that's how I got into Marvellous Mangroves, because Marvellous Mangroves was what we started out with, and then they got sucked us in to do this other thing, paid a pittance, took it away from us. I was furious. But, I mean, that's the way the Aristotle's the truth of it anyhow, so you should be used to it. And so that's why we went off and said, okay, well, you want the Caribbean? Fine, there's lots of other countries on the planet. And so we did, we started off doing San Andres and Providence. Do you guys know those islands? They are Colombian, but they're off the coast of Nicaragua. So they like Cayman, they like here to a degree, but they were British. And then for some reason, at the beginning of the last century, the Brits swapped them with Spain for something else. I don't remember what it was. And Colombia ignored them because, well, who cares? And so then Colombia decided it would be a very good idea to really seriously colonize them. And said, well, we'll clean up the islands for you, but you've got to teach Spanish in school. That's it. So they built new schools and everything, and then tried to... brainwashing, okay? So I did some work with them, and we did adapted the book for them, translated it, adapted it, and then we went, because it was in Spanish, we then went to Honduras and Guatemala, and the mainland Cartagena, and that whole main area of Colombia. And then we went down into Brazil, and up to Belize, and then over to Australia, Indonesia, and Bangladesh, and China. So that's how we sort of spread around to do things. But at each place, as you saw, that the book itself has to be translated, and it has to be adapted for the ecosystem that exists there. It's different. Every country and every continent has different ecosystems. So you can't produce this one book fits all, which is what West Indian Working Book does. This is it. This is boilerplate. You apply it right the way across the West Indies. Okay, that's it. So, and I have a problem with that. But anyway, so that's the core of the whole Marvellous Mangroves program, how it works.